Initial status of our 4 players here in Group C. It's time to find out who's still fit to stay alive and have another shot at the round of 16. Roddy and Hug, thank you for joining me here on the desk in the upcoming match. This is an elimination match now, the halfway point of Group C. And Roddy, I mean, as you were casting the previous game, what were your thoughts watching HeRoMaRinE? Because we talked about it briefly on the desk. You guys mentioned during the commentary that he had some really good moves against Jaedong, but Jaedong pulled through.
I think this is actually a series that will bother him a little bit. You know, going up against Jaedong and, you know, not ending up at the right side of the score, I don't think that's the end of the world, and maybe you think about that before you play, but taking game number 2 in consideration, it shouldn't matter whether you're playing against Jaedong or your average German Zerg, you know, whenever he's winning a German championship, because he was in such a good position, and a Terran of his caliber should be able to close out a game like that. So I think he's a little bit shaken up. I think he's a little bit frustrated with himself, maybe, but hopefully he can just forget about it, move on into the next series. But Sen looked a lot better than we thought he did in the start of the day, so I think it's going to be quite hard for him.
Yeah, let's... Oh, I mean, did you want to add to that,
Do
Chris?
you think he knows how good of a position he was in?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like 25 supply up. Because that's the worst
Absolutely.
part, you know, if he goes and he knows that he was that far ahead and it's just like, I can't believe I threw that game.
I mean, it definitely seemed like he knew in game too, right? He wasn't like playing super scared. It was just, obviously there's 2 ways to that, right? Jaedong also played phenomenally well. We do have to give credit there. It wasn't simply that HeRoMaRinE wasn't realizing the position he was in. But that's always a good question, right? Because we have the full view.
Yes,
we have
know
all the
for sure,
numbers,
yes.
Whereas the players don't always when they're playing live. And right now he has to go right into the next match.
No, but he has a lot of experience in this matchup, and I think he knows whenever a Zerg cuts off that much economy, and he probably checked, like, as soon as you leave the game, the first thing you do is, like, when did he drop that pool? Graphics, and you're like, oh, God, like, I definitely missed, you know, a lot of opportunities here. But I do think there's one thing he can take from this series, and that's, like, in both games, he lost his Hellions. As a Terran, you can't afford to lose your Hellions. So it's like ultra red flag, you know, red alert, all alarm bells go off. This game, keep them alive, you know, make sure you make it hard for the Zerg to spread creep, etc., etc. And I do think that's one positive thing he can take from this series, is that he's going to have to be extra careful with his Hellions, and I would be super shocked if he ends up losing them once more.
Yeah, and you know, I love that you brought it up earlier, and of course we talked about it briefly in the beginning of the day. HeRoMaRinE, I mean, he's here because he's been a champion in Germany. He's been playing really well, and there's a reason he's now elevated into the WCS. I mean, as you can see, sure, the numbers don't tell the whole story, though. He hasn't even played that many matches. You can't really read too much into that.
No, this is actually his first time ever in WCS Premier League, but he came so close multiple times. He lost in Challenger 4 seasons in a row. That's more than a year and a half, almost a year and a half, that he ended up losing in Challenger.
And at that point, I mean, so you got to look back and think, you know, there's much more to that, right? There's who was your opponent? I mean, where were you at that point in your own play? So the fact that he was that close is also, I mean, it's like when we talk about second places versus first place. If you were there that many times, it means that you probably have the potential to be there, and finally has that shot.
And that's the biggest thing here. We saw the ages. HeRoMaRinE is a young, aspiring player. He's
Very
on the
true.
rise. He just made Premier for the first time. Sen, he's an old veteran. He's been here. He's 28 years old compared to the 18-year-old at HeRoMaRinE. He's definitely, you know, his peak has come and passed. HeRoMaRiNE's probably still on the horizon, and we're hoping to see that in these maps. Coda, of course, being that standard map that we're going to see in 90% of series, but also Cactus Valley. It's kind of a weird pick. Sen picks it at that, and he just saw him play against Jaedong on that map. Do you think he's going into this with a small read? Possibly a CC first on the ramp? There's not too much you can do against that, I feel.
No, I don't think there's a whole lot you can do against it. I think he's just quite okay with playing Cactus Valley. It's a larger map, should give him some options to stabilize. Sen is still a very strong macro-oriented player as well. He may be old, but he's still pretty damn fast.
Yeah, and as we were talking yesterday, I mean, we're joking around about, oh, well, like, Dash Terminal showed up once in Group A, and then we're talking about Bridgehead constantly showing up, but at the same time, it seems like some of these players are just trying to pick the lesser of 2 evils. They're like, well, I'm not comfortable on Dash Terminal. We'll let Bridgehead through. Hopefully we don't get to Game 3. I mean, that seems to be the mindset for a lot of these guys. So going with Cactus Valley first, and then, of course, HeRoMaRinE, as we saw, selected Coda to try to stabilize things in Game 2, should he need to have a boost to go to Game 3.
Who are you leaning towards to, Chris?
Leaning towards Sen. I'm going to say the old dog experience. I'm going to chuck him in. I mean, I'm an old guy myself.
If you would have asked me in the start of the day, I would have definitely said HeRoMaRinE, but I'm kind of tempted to agree with you now. Maybe it's a little bit of the nerves as well.
Exactly.
First time Premier League, you know, he's been
true.
working so hard to finally get
Maybe
here.
first time US.
I mean, but overall, the fact that you're here in this studio playing Premier League in front of some of these crowds, and you're trying to say, all right, well, I want a chance to play in Poland in the round of 16. I mean, going to the round of 16 is a huge deal for a lot of these players, but for him, In some ways, it's already an achievement, but he doesn't want to stop here. It's going to be a big deal. And of course, Roddy, you brought up earlier, Sen has pleasantly surprised a lot of people. People were wondering, like, oh, man, is he still on form? Because, yeah, he's also a legend in his own right, but has been fizzling out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he made it to Premier League already 7 times. 7 out of the 9 potential seasons he could have played in, he made it to Premier League, but only 1 time round of 16, and that's pretty weird. And especially a couple of those last exits he had in the round of 32, like those were kind of ugly. Like the games against 4GG, I think they were down in the record books as the quickest WCS series ever. It was 7 and 8 minutes, and that's, you know, that's not the Sen that we know from 2012, 2013. If you give him his element, if he starts practicing a lot again, he's still a very strong StarCraft player. And in the first series of the day, I don't want to make it bigger than it is because he did play kind of an overly aggressive style, but at least his approach was smart and he was doing the right thing. So I think he's looking quite good and he should do well here.
It's time to find out, Roddy and Huck, and of course all of you guys at home, tell us what you think. Hashtag WCS. For now, it's time to get into the game. Over at the desk with Nate and In Control.
2 players knocked down to the point of elimination, but only one of them will escape this brawl. In Control, HeRoMaRiNE facing off against Sen after being handily defeated by 2 pretty damn good StarCraft players.
Yeah, and these are 2 pretty good players in their own right as well. I mean, that's WCS, so it's a little bit of a you know, as always in this round, it's the redemption story. Neither one of these guys want to be like, yeah, I got a trip to Burbank, and then I got sent home as quick as I possibly could.
It's a nice place, but you don't want to just come here and lose games of StarCraft.
You do not. You absolutely do not.
And it's time to find out which one of these players will advance, who will stay alive in Group C of the World Championship Series in the Northwest. We have our Red Terran player from Mouse Sports. He is HeRoMaRiNE, who just had a honestly pretty crushing loss against Jaedong in our second match of the day. He faces off against our Taiwanese Zerg player. He is Sen.
So a couple of notes on the first couple of games we saw from these guys. One, HeRoMaRiNE, we just saw him on this map. A nice bout with Jaedong. Going for a different build here, of course. That was CC first. This will be fairly standard, but still safe at the top of that ramp walling in. And that's what I want to kind of talk about with him. Again, that rhetoric comes into play where it's like, HeRoMaRiNE, you're up against Jaedong. Shouldn't you be proxy raxing, meching, like doing crazy, you know, 4-port Banshee is something that we were joking about in the background. Like, do you do something crazy? And HeRoMaRiNE says, no, I beat Ret, one of the most mechanically sound and strong European Zergs there are. Jaedong, not too far cry from him. So he feels like he could do it toe-to-toe. Results-wise, maybe not so much. Sen did something that maybe it takes a Protoss to see this, Nathaniel, so I don't fault you for maybe not noticing it, but he actually made, I believe it was like 2 Zerglings, skip speed, went lair into Hydralisk, 75 drones, game 2. And I've never hated so hard in my life. I was looking at that, I was like, oh my gosh!
If only he had 8 gateways and he was pushing him right now.
He would just die. But the point of the matter is that makes Sen dangerous. Not only is he mechanically fairly sound, he is a guy that will take...
He's not afraid to go for a couple of the ballsy strategies here and there.
Yes, and greed. He's very capable of greed, and as a Zerg player, that can be very dangerous. So we put these guys together safe in greed, and we're in for probably a little bit longer matchups, but there's going to be some risk taken. And at this stage, I feel like both these players need to do that. I do think Showtime and Jaedong are the better players to these 2. Results would kind of speak to that.
Both of those guys are just so much more willing usually to take those risky steps, and Sen to some degree has shown that. But HeRoMaRiNE's build orders, his strategies, his play styles have been, you know, that typical like, oh, I'm all righteous and play just standard macro game 3 CC, even though my opponent is statistically rated 90% against me. But here he is, still putting
honorable
it up.
is what we say as casters.
Honorable,
that's what you were
I
saying
guess
yesterday.
you could say.
Before you were so jaded, Nathaniel. Yeah. Now you're angry at all
my
the Terran loss.
My heart has been broken.
Has it Terran advanced yet, actually? Oh, Pole, of course.
Yeah, well, of course. Of course. Of course. But that's the thing, though. If you're playing against HeRoMaRiNE, are you really expecting him to do some sort of 2-factory Blue Flame Hellion push into mass Hellbat mech Banshee? Like, no.
I misspoke. I earlier said that, you know, the Chinese scene is very insular. Of course, Sen does not play in the Chinese scene. He mostly plays in kind of the Korean scene, if you will. The Korean
a lot
ladder.
of those tournaments over there can still be, you know, a lot of the smaller ones.
Sure, but my point is he does not actually see HeRoMaRiNE that much. They do not rub shoulders. They don't, you know, he was playing in NESLs.
I doubt they bump into each other too often.
Correct. So, to answer your question, no, I don't think he expects anything. I think he's going to this just saying, you're a Terran and I'm a Zerg, and I need to win this one to move on.
Yeah, nice drone kill to start things off. And he's shaking it up. you know, to some degree, we're seeing him not go for the crazy fast 3 command center build that he used against Jaedong. Still only 1 gas, so it's possible we have just another Viking opening. Could be another Cloakless Banshee opening.
Banshee.
He's got a lot of options, and I think that's totally fine. If there's one thing that HeRoMaRinE can go into this match saying, it's like, yes, I actually did have a massive lead against Jaedong, and there's no way this guy is as good as Jaedong. He doesn't, you know, as much as we talk about Jaedong having rough results this year, Sen in the international scene, we talk about, just look at the number of WCS points he has. He hasn't competed as well in those, you know, in these big premier tournaments.
He has not. I would tell you that the caution tape around Sen, the crime scene that is Sen, is that you need to be careful, because a lot, kind of like Jaedong, where it's, you know, a mixed bag. Sometimes he's just absolutely amazing. Other times he's having a tougher time. Nice round here.
Yeah, actually, really good.
Is that he's capable of going up into those. He is a top-notch player in body. It's just, for whatever reason, he's fairly inconsistent in that.
And we do have HeRoMaRinE mixing it up. This looks a little bit like what Kellezer actually busted out against Starbuck yesterday. A fast mine play with a medevac drop, and that actually makes those few Marines that Zergling run by picked off. Normally you're saying to yourself, okay, well, he didn't get my Hellions. He actually needs those Marines to make a forward push like this actually do damage.
Yeah, it was nice. But as Flo just showed us, nice job by Flo, the starport was not spotted. So going for a medevac at this time, a little bit different. Oh, the Overlord's on a mission, but it actually will probably be a little bit late. That, well, the medevac's already out, actually. It'll be very late.
Yep. That's the tricky
Super
part
late.
about this, is that you can infer based off Hellions, yeah, okay, yeah, built a factory, but you don't know what the follow-up is, and it's mines. They're burrowing. The drones aren't moving in control.
Oh. All right. That's the one. That was the one.
9.
That was the one.
That'll
The other one,
do
not
it.
so impressive. That one was like, hey, guy, I got your back. Don't you worry about it.
Now in control is the question I'd like to ask. Is that the equivalent yet of a 9 pool doing no damage against command center?
Oh, man. I would say no, just because the production is so explosive for Zerg that he's going to be able to come back from this. The big thing about that 9 pool was
Not
it
mine.
slows down your queen, it slows down your hatchery.
Are they going to detonate again?
Yeah, it will.
Oh, no.
Does it go after the queen, though?
Is it targeted? Yep. Okay, gets another 2 drones there. The one in the natural just detonated. Hit the queen, though, so he didn't micro
Not as
both
big of a
mines.
deal.
Yeah.
A little bit sloppy, because that mine was within vision from the Spore, so it's just Sen didn't really kind of prioritize targeting it down. And he forgot it was there, to be honest.
Yeah, but at this point, if you're a Zerg player and at close to 9 minutes you're just building drones to get even with the Terran, that's not a fun place to be. And whereas you have
Not ideal.
the upgrades are about to begin for HeRoMaRinE, he's adding on all of his production for 3-base setup. He's getting pretty much everything he needs.
It's not ideal,
has
but
just started.
Let's talk about this, though. Like, you give up the Hellion stage, so creep spread is actually, if you look at that, pretty darn good for Sen. And it was slowed down a little bit because he had to pull back the queens, but otherwise not bad. And again, he is at 3 hatches, so remaking those drones is okay. So like, look, 9 drones were killed in a single shot. Like, I'm not going to be here and be like,
You have a good point about the creep spread.
But it's not the end of the world at all.
You do have a really good point about the creep spread. That was one of the things that Jaedong used to bring that last game back. And, you know, funnily enough, on Cactus Valley, HeRoMaRinE basically playing this map twice in a row must be thinking to himself, gosh darn, it really is hard to push across this map when there's so much creep spread. The difference is that 4th base will be taken in a position much closer to where HeRoMaRinE's base is, unless he continues to expand just down the south side,
I think
at which
he
point
would.
he's really spread out versus drops.
Exactly. And that was, I mean, that's always going to be your burden on this map. And I mean, unless you're, well, no, I mean, if you look at it, generally speaking, no matter what spawn you're in, you are expanding towards your opponent. Jaedong did have the advantage of, like, lower left, top left is, I think, better for the Zerg, because while that expansion does get kind of spread out, as you say, and is easier for drops, and we definitely saw a drop kill that expansion, it's not as bad, I think, as these positions. So I do agree with you, but I think you see this map in those top 3 map selections, because both players generally agree, while it is a 4-player map, it's not bad.
Yeah, there's not too much weird trickery that takes place here, but this creep continuously being pushed out by Sen, as we have the 1-1 upgrades getting closer and closer to completing. Baneling speed is on the way, Spire is on the way, all that mid-game delicious tech is coming into play. But even that Viking with the supply block here and there, HeRoMaRinE sits at a supply lead as a Terran. That's always a good spot to be. You just want to clear up this creep, back off, wait for it to go away, and do not let those queens come out and plant another dozen tumors.
Yeah, a pretty significant supply advantage, by the way, right now. 30 supply. It was a little bit more, but Sen did get unsupply blocked and built up a cycle. His Spire is about to complete, and he only has about 200 or 300 minerals in the bank, so we're not going to see like instantly 10 Mutas or anything like that. It's going to be about this kind of mid-map play. The Mutas are going to start trickling out, and that'll be nice, because with 3 medevacs here, if HeRoMaRinE plays his cards right, he should just kill a bunch of creep tumors and take about 0 losses and back out.
Yeah, we also have to consider that missile turrets have only just started, and if he doesn't build them in each base, it'll be very difficult for him to take engagements. Baneling's speed is about to finish, so just picks up.
Look at the capacity on this medevacs. It's as if he planned it.
Yeah, it's perfect. He had just enough space. No man left behind. Good way to play StarCraft.
Yeah, he's very efficient. But Sen on the flip side here too, doing a good job of rebuilding those creep tumors, and he is not overcommitted to anything as well. It's very easy for a Zerg to be like, oh god, there's an army in the middle of the map, and then they just sweep out with a million Zerglings, but in doing so, really cutting into their larvae and stagnating the production. As such, though, HeRoMaRiNE still managing that supply advantage. That's not that, by the way, guys, that's not that untypical for a TvZ. Like, at this time, typically speaking, the Terran does have a supply advantage. I don't think it's, 30 like we see here. It's usually around 20, 15. So Sen's going to be looking to make up that difference and try to get the favorable engage.
Yep, and we have Mutalisks now coming out into the map too. They're going to be looking for their own opportunities as this Viking that was watching a potential 4th base area will it looks like he's not going to kill immediately, but this is still a really big point of contention. This is a hallway that covers a lot of areas. All the production facilities will rally towards here, so pushing him back off of this, getting that creep, very important. Stepping away. There's not that many Widow Mines here, but there's so many Marines, it's not really a position that Sen can break. HeRoMaRiNE's done a really good job of taking that early advantage that he built off the mine drop, and he hasn't thrown away really anything.
He did win the space to land those creep tumors again, though. He's being very consistent about that. Again, tip of the hat, though, to HeRoMaRiNE. While Sen's doing a good job rebuilding that, you'll notice it's kind of stopped where it was about 5 minutes ago because it's not allowed to push further, so good job by HeRoMaRiNE. Nathanias, we do see the 4th base going towards that more middle expansion. I mean, what do you think about that? In your TvZs, do you...
Just look at the distance between where that center rally position of the Terran army is and that hatchery. You have the high ground position, you can put Widow Mines there, very difficult for Zerglings or Banelings to hit. You could leave a couple Marines up there, later on you could put a Thor there. This is prime real estate right now for HeRoMaRiNE to set up on. Get a nice condo here. All these Widow Mines laying it out, covering it.
Hotels already if it's a Monopoly game.
Exactly. And you know what? I think Sen's going to potentially end up landing on one of those and paying a big price.
Comes Broadway. Queen's thinking about laying creep tumors.
It's like, well, no, Queen. Do not pass the mines. Do not collect 200 minerals. And these Banelings can't get really much done either. At this point, HeRoMaRiNE's maxed out. Just keep rallying across. Keep this position held. Don't lose your mines, and everything that runs in here will just die.
This is the HeRoMaRiNE that a lot of German fans in particular were hoping for in the last game. Very patient play, weathers the few kind of thrusts of Banelings in there, not taking critical hits like in the past we saw against Jaedong. Instead, here trading very well. And now this is the main thrust coming forward. Banelings trying to look for those connections. Good splits from HeRoMaRiNE, and the Widow Mine's doing a lot of work there. So while this is a trade, and it looks like for the most part, Sen's going to be okay. Look at the supply.
Compare it to the game against Jaedong, though. The reinforcements are immediately here to help fight against this. There's not that many Banelings. The Widow Mines are going to bro. Just needs to keep dodging around. And okay, well, friendly fire hurt quite a bit there. The Thor's still too fat to squeeze through, so he's here to defend.
He's trying. Oh, he's doing good though. We were just about to hype up, and I agree with you. It's like, oh, Sen.
I still think that's great. A couple of those mines are still there. These mutas could actually. Okay, I was about to check the cooldowns. Like, they could have actually just all died flying through that.
And he lost his overseers, so actually there are still Widow Mines over here, and that cooldown has gone down.
He has such little gas, he doesn't actually have any Banelings, so I think HeRoMaRiNE could possibly just push in and seal the deal right here. There's not enough mutas to really chase.
Where did his gas go? But I guess that's a question for another day. This 4th base is dead. He's evacuating the drones. He's going to try to retake the 4th down there. Baneling's going up, but it actually might be too little too late. That base died so seamlessly. There is a chance that HeRoMaRiNE might just push for high ground right now.
Yeah, he's going to continue to advance, and with so many Widow Mines here pushing into this is borderline impossible. Leave the Marauders up front if you can, and just step back and let everything blow up in control. These mutas are not going to be able to stop all these Marines and that Thor. The Thor, he was finally let out of his cage.
Here he is, fat or not, he's ready to fight. Baneling's going down. And Sen's holding on for dear life, but he's actually making Banelings in the midst of combat. There's the tanking units, the Marauders, and the Thor. Sen is now fighting with just the Mulas with very little support, so again, he cleans up this army.
Doing pretty well with his macro, I have to say. Like, he still managed to churn out a ridiculous number of units, but the reinforcement line just has such a shorter path to go than it did when you're playing in that cross-spawn position. The next wave of reinforcements is already here. You're still choked up on gas, you're still choked up on Banelings, and if you're trying to build Banelings and Mutalisks at the same time, you're never going to obtain a critical mass of either.
Right. It's very tough to deal with. Sen holding on. He has reestablished that 4th base, and I think there's a swath of drones making their way down there. So if he can hold on just a little bit longer, and he's, the medevac count's a little bit trimmed down. It was at like 8. Now it's down to about 4 or 5 right here.
Oh, these
Milo's
mutas,
rallying, dying as well. And
yeah, another Thor shows up, so that splash damage becomes a big threat once again. The
creeps
Marines just
receded as well at this
just
point in
stepping
time.
back. Yeah, this is a phenomenal position. Sen is on the ropes now as this Thor getting microed a little bit further, trying to really bully these Mutalisks away. But just so much splash damage in this army.
And expanding behind this is HeRoMaRinE looking to build on that advantage, still managing like a 40 supply damage. The mutas are standing. This is going to be it, ladies and gentlemen. Once you lose those mutas, it is over. And GG's called out as our young German sees that winner screen for the first time today. Of course, it's just the second match, and he has to play right in a row.
Yeah, not too shabby. His opener set him up so well. You come off a loss like that against Jaehyung. He still had a phenomenal position, and you really can't, discredit him for losing to Jaehyung of all people. No. And Sen comes in, had that back and forth, a little rough, had a couple pickups here and there against Showtime, but now you're coming in against this young German player, and he just blindsides you with that medevac drop. And you could say it was over something as silly as moving that Overlord in a little too late and not realizing, oh, he's not going for a Viking or a Banshee, he's actually a really quick mine drop.
And it did a lot of damage, and it just kind of threw off Sen. And to be honest, too, this is the better HeRoMaRinE we were hoping to see. Like, this is, it's not to be understood too much the mental game of StarCraft, where, like, if you're facing someone like Jaehyung, a lot of times you can overestimate their abilities, you can kind of freak out, think you have to do weird things, when in fact, if you just play your normal game like we saw from HeRoMaRinE here, you can be in a really good position.
And then these mines just being able to detonate again and again, these are the silly things that are really going to slow you down. And HeRoMaRinE picked a very good build order, especially considering that it's highly likely Sen would watch the series against Jaehyung. He's like, okay, what do I have to expect from this guy? Sure. Bio, okay, 3 command centers, maybe I can be a bit aggressive. HeRoMaRinE's build sets himself up very well to defend either of those plays. And then this beautiful setup, all these Widow Mines spread out, as nice as it is for Sen to eventually bully this back, maybe the control could have been a bit tighter from HeRoMaRinE. HeRoMaRinE's macro was on point, and that's what allows him to continue to take advantage of this close rally position like we talked about.
Yeah, and Nathanius, your analysis on that was spot on, and I do feel like if we're looking at a moment in time where Sen really kind of dropped the ball, it was the choice to take this fourth, but then compounding that error by saying, I'm also going to defend this unsaturated naked fourth against a very well-positioned Terran. We've got Widow Mines crawling up this ramp. They're really very well spaced out. Sometimes you see Terran players have like 6 or 7 Widow Mines in a clump, and it's like, well, there goes your advantage. But in this case, no, HeRoMaRinE was great.
I mean, HeRoMaRinE's macro and everything was really on point. I think if his control was tightened up a little bit, things like this mine, for example, killing that full medevac, like if you tighten that up a little bit, he wins this game much faster with a lot less difficulty. But
and then Sen overextended here too, which is kind of weird. He's
he
like,
lost
I've
a lot
got
of his
7
mutas.
mutas and 5 Zerglings. Let's end this game.
And I think it was at that point he rebuilt a lot of mutas, which came back to us talking about why doesn't he have any banelings?
Yeah.
But map 2 will be Coda. We'll have to see if HeRoMaRinE can seal the deal, as it were, against this player, the Blue Zerg in the southeast, who is knocked out by a German Protoss. Will he be knocked out by a German Terran? It's Sen.
That's a good point. Man.
Sen's getting beaten up by the Germans today.
Germany's going to town on Taiwan right now.
That's an elegant way of putting it. And
Thank you.
It's
I'm an elegant man.
And it could be by the hands of this German man, or maybe I should say child.
Boy.
Is HeRoMaRinE, this German lad. I will say, the macro is good. Because I think about that fight, like, okay, the control, a little bit sloppy, but if that was pretty similar to the siege position he had on the high ground on Jaehyung's 4th/5th in the second map of that series. And the reason why it was so bad was he had those units as the push came in, but his reinforcements were sprinting across the map. They had to go all the way to the opposite side. And that's one of those things that just kind of naturally acts as a disadvantage just by the spawns. And, Jaehyung smartly pushing the creep spread so far that he could never actually make his way down that map.
Well, I also think in that fight he had limited to no Widow Mines. Like, he started the fight with quite a few Widow Mines, but as it got towards the end, when that reinforcements was unfortunately not there to hopefully tip the battle in favor of the Terran player, he had none. And in this case, not the case. Huck was saying he may have too many Widow Mines. I want to hear your thoughts on that in a second, but too many or not, he had like 6 or 7 well-spaced out, well-positioned Widow Mines. Not something you want to literally charge in with your whole force. Like something Jaehyung did that Sen was doing a little bit of, but I felt like Jaehyung did better, was splintering off, 3 or 4 Banelings, 5 or 6 Zerglings running in, looking for connections, sure, but really just trying to get those Widow Mines out of the way.
A lot of it comes down to, if you're going to play around with that many mines, you do want to consider using just like pulling your Marines away, because splitting them won't actually help that much if the mines are also going to kill your forces, because that AoE is really, really strong with the Banelings. You just run your bio away and try to target fire with those mines.
Yeah.
You know, it's a hard thing to do, but if you've got 7 or 8 mines, just pick one and just have it like click between 2 different units so that it doesn't fire. And then when the reinforcements come in, they're like, okay, his mine should be detonating now, and then he sends the rest in. Then you click on one of those Banelings.
Messing up the timing.
Yeah, there have been big moments in games where, and I guess that's a bit harder to see, it's a bit harder to show when you're casting because those mines don't have those laser sights yet, and they've added in Legacy of the Void, but you can't tell exactly what they're targeting, but you know, I mean, a lot of the top Korean players do target those mines as much as they possibly can.
Absolutely.
It's not uncommon to see individual mines selected in big fights.
Something to strive for. HeRoMaRinE going to open up very standard again, at least thus far. We did see a Widowmine drop, which is a little bit more on the uncommon side in TvZ matchups. It was nice to see. Nice to see him mix it up. I was kind of worried he would go into this match against Sen and just be like, well, I'm, you know, gonna do the exact same thing, and then Sen could just blind hard counter with huge greed, but not the case.
Yeah, it's possible that Sen was still expecting, you know, some of the same plays to come out of HeRoMaRinE. For example, on this map, the last game, when he played against Jaedong in that first series, he went for a 3 Reaper opening. In this game, that's not at all what's coming. He's gone for a very similar to the last map, a couple of extra Marines in the early game.
Yeah.
This will help him deal with anything like a fast Roach or Zergling push.
Yeah, I want to see where this goes, because a lot of times you'll have a starport go up pretty quick behind this, much similar to last game.
If Zerglings don't run by, then you have enough Marines to, like, drop the mines and just have the Marines push with your Hellions on the other side.
Yeah.
Like, you can have 2 pushes rather than just dropping the 3 Marines you have because you lost 4.
All right, it's going to be 4 Marines and then Hellions, so it's still a fairly similar or standard opening. There's the starport, it's a little bit later. With that little bit later starport, is it going to be
I wouldn't even
Banshee, or
mind.
actually Banshee?
I wouldn't even mind, like, if you could do an armory with the second gas that's being taken.
Okay.
But I really wouldn't mind him just going for like a 8 Marine drop, 6 Hellion run by, which is also a pretty popular strategy. It's very difficult to deal with, especially if you don't open up with speed. And we do have Zergling speed, but you know, you have to adjust the positioning of those units. If those Marines all land and they're like in between, you know, the geyser and one of the mineral patches or 2 mineral patches, those Zerglings are never going to get the surface area they need to kill Marines being healed. Like, no, they're all bunched up. It's impossible to kill them all.
Never, Nathanius.
It's impossible in control, because you know what? There'd be 6 Hellions in your natural, too. It's like, oh, I brought all my Zerglings and Queens. I did it, Nate. It's like, yes, well, now you have no drones in your natural. Have fun.
I'm going to breathe positive life back into you, Nathanius. I'm going to find the center of your black heart.
I'm just dreaming about drones being cooked right now, okay?
There you go. That's the beginning of it.
I just want a nice drone steak. Whatever that tastes like, I want to know.
That can't be good. It can't be. They're giant cockroaches.
Have you ever been to the Koprulu sector, Jeff?
You know what? To be honest with you, I have not. I've been meaning to.
There's like in-game advertisements for that stuff too, like in the campaign. They have like Mutalisk wings are like a thing.
See, and that's just destroying my fluff, because there's no way they would eat Mutalisk wings. They wouldn't.
How do you not know? What if they're really good crispy?
I have to imagine. Like, think about that. Like,
we need an air unit that shoots fire first. I think is the big thing. Like, there's no
they're called
unit.
dragons, my friend.
There's actually no fire-breathing anti-air unit in StarCraft.
Well,
That's the real
you just
problem.
gave me a nightmare. Thank you. I'm trying to make you more positive, and you just did that. All right, Cloak. About to finish up here. Banshee making its way across. This third that it would normally be applying pressure to doesn't exist. It is actually a quick 2-base Spire build, which I wouldn't necessarily call it a hard counter to this opening, but it's definitely pretty good for the Zerg. They're pretty happy with that.
Yeah, a couple of these Hellions getting caught. Unfortunate, as it will force the other ones to come back and defend this. That Spire, too. You know, all of this is just time ticking away, and when those Mutalisks come out, the Hellions are totally useless with that Banshee.
Just parked. Get going, girl. You got work to do before the Mutalisk.
Yeah, especially those Spore Crawlers that are coming in now, too. So the Banshee's going to cloak. I think in this position, you got to just focus down drones.
Yes.
There's enough energy on the Queens to transfuse each other.
Oh, I like that. The Queen's actually kind of like... They could have probably gotten another 2 or 3 drones.
Bullied him away.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
no Overseer being made nearby. The only Overseer on the map is by his main base. So that
Your Marine respect, though. He was like, all right.
He's like, an Overseer could show up at any time. Don't want to lose the Banshee. Acceptable, but you could have killed a little bit more there, bud.
Swan Song of the Reaper. I'll get that information. Runs in and dies. So this Banshee, by the way, pretty ineffective. A couple of drones, a couple of sprinkled shots at the Queens, but that's not what you're hoping for with a cloaked Banshee.
Didn't see the Spire timing also. The Spire's about to finish. Engineering base as well. But HeRoMaRinE, he needs to like slap down those missile turrets immediately. And he doesn't have all that many minerals banked up because he just finished up all these barracks. He wants to get his Marine production going. And he can still do quite a bit of damage. 8 mutas are on the way.
And it's going to be rough. Overseer here as well to make sure that these Banshees do not escape with their cloak fields. 1-1 on the way. I just don't think HeRoMaRiNE's aware of what's happening right now.
Yeah, there's no
which
turret
is weird.
started.
He sees the late third, sees just queens and lings. Like, what else
He
could
knows
it
there's a
possibly
lair,
be?
too. You know there's been a lair
Yeah.
done for a while. That's a scary spot to be. Now missile turret begins. Just one so far.
Slap down, as you said.
Yeah. That's what it feels like, man.
It's very aggressive. A lot of casters say throw down. Nathaniel's shaking up the meta with slap down.
Vernacular is very important.
It is.
So these Hellions, what are you doing?
Let us up! Let us up! Lower the ramp!
You're not Reapers.
Lower
It's not
the
how
ramp.
it's meant to be.
You know, to be honest with you, Zerg doesn't care. Like, it looks like he might actually go after them. What do the Hellions do at this stage? They're gonna run in.
turned into Hellbats, they're still pretty good in actual fights.
Yeah.
I think Hellions, keeping them alive is as big, unless you kill a dozen or so drones throwing them away, like they are way, way more useful being Hellbats in the mid game.
Asking you shall receive. All in all, getting both the Banshees, a couple of Hellions, okay, but still, again, 2 base mutas. So it's not like other harass openings where it's like, well, if you don't kill 10, SCVs, you're dead. It's actually more about map control as well. And right now, Sen's doing okay, but that creep really needs to start running wild because you'll notice, look at how in base HeRoMaRiNE is right now. He's just not out on the field. You got to take advantage of this right now.
When you open up with 3 command centers, you always want that there to be planted down by about, latest 11 minutes, and we're pushing 12 here. It'll take a little time to fly over. Now you have to deal with these Mutalisks working away in one of your refineries. This can mess up your gas timing.
He's coming home for it, too.
And it can also distract you because you want to take the 3rd base too.
Yeah.
And I don't actually think there's an armory on the map, which is another big problem because without that, you actually can't start his 2-2 upgrades. Yeah, his 1-1's about
Not
to finish.
here. A little bit of a mistake.
No armory.
Sen setting up the counterattack, by the way, too. He's going to go up towards that 3rd. Meanwhile, HeRoMaRiNE is marching down the middle of the map. Ooh, reinforcements getting picked off. Medevac losing here would be kind of a big deal.
Changeling was like, I know of a transport with no defenses.
Didn't get the medevac, though.
So now the armory starts. Now the 3rd base is in the air. HeRoMaRiNE has forces out on the map, but if this army gets cleaned up,
he's in trouble.
I would almost say, like, if this was one of my games, like, this is where you're pretty much dead. Like, I'm not actually mining off. I'm not mining off 3 bases, but this can work right as Baneling speed finishes. I was going to say, if Baneling speed hadn't finished there, he could have killed a few more of those. But now his reinforcements are sprinting across, and if he loses all this, I'm really worried about Sen just taking this counter all the way back.
He might. He's going to push up here a little bit. Gets turned around by the reinforcements. The 3 Vikings actually helping out kind of miraculously in that anti-air fight. Still a victory for Sen, though. I mean, we were talking about this at this point in time last game. HeRoMaRiNE was at like 165 supplied.
And HeRoMaRiNE was in a position to deny the 4th base. Now the 4th base is done. Drones are already going onto it. Sen finds himself with an astronomically larger income than he did on Cactus Valley, whereas HeRoMaRiNE was situated on 3 bases, making that push pretty comfortably. Much more even game. I wouldn't say HeRoMaRiNE's quite out of it, but he needs to start like that +2 armor. His upgrade could have been close to halfway done now if his armory was ready for the completion of the +1 upgrades.
This is one of those weird things, too, where like maybe he couldn't afford it at the time when he started the upgrades, but as we watch this, we all know those feels of a StarCraft player that forgets something, like they click the upgrade but didn't have the money for it and then never come back
There's
around.
2 mines tucked behind that missile turret, actually really nice, or that refinery, excuse me.
Good dodge
really
by
nice.
Sen. That could have been way worse. That could have been like all the mutas, to be honest.
And in front of those turrets, it certainly helps. If there's a 3rd, or I guess in the dream scenario, you're like, I'm going to put 4 mines there, then you actually kill all the Mutalisks.
Well, he does find the armor, by the way, so it's not going to be an all-game mistake.
Yeah. Still, it's tiny things like this that add up over the course of the game. And what if his 3-3 is that 30, 40 seconds from finishing, and then a bunch of mutas swoop in and deny it, like Jadon did.
Let's agree to both just lose it if that happens. Just scream.
I'd be very sad.
Baneling's being made at the low ground. The creepsters at the top.
The creepsters is denied pretty well, but still coming and taking this fight. The mine's not able to detonate. Really, really important for Sen. And he's going for that infestation pit, which means he could try to go for Hive. His Hive will immediately start. And if he gets that upgrade advantage, if he actually gets 3-3 and makes it to Ultras, HeRoMaRiNE's going to be in a world of hurt. There's
that fight right there, by the way, is the security of the 4th for Sen. Like, that's the fight that if HeRoMaRiNE is able to, kind of carve a victory for himself, maybe he makes his way to a meaningful spot. He opens space so he can drop the 4th, but by losing that, Sen has absolute map control at this point in time. And all of a sudden, HeRoMaRiNE, in order to get back in this, he has to do like a cheeky drop. But
his macro has been really good. Yeah, his macro has been really good, and with the Crusade, he's been pushing back. Like, he just needs to find an opening, really. And there are openings out on this map. The Overlords are watching a lot, but he could just splinter off through this Vikings, try to get a big push. But look at this, a massive throng of units push over towards the third base. There's a bunker here, sure, but there's more than enough Banelings to crash into this. He needs to save these workers. The Widowmines are going to burrow. Their army runs back. There's no way he's going to kill the third command center. So HeRoMaRinE comes, he defends, loses a little bit, but this could have been a lot worse.
It could have been a lot worse.
Imagine if Sen had burrow, actually. That would have been like so scary. You're sprinting back, you don't notice, and then 2 Banelings blow up half
the best.
Marines.
It's the best.
A lot of stims forced out too here, by the way. Most of this army going into the orange without ever actually being nibbled on by a Zergling.
Well, he's defending, and he's defending while the Hive is coming closer, so that we see 3... Well,
72 Lings just are on the way, by the way. He just finished like 60.
And a couple of good detonations there. You know what's actually starting to come into play, too, is a lot of these Widowmines are dying kind of in each fight you look, like 3 or 4 are dying, so that high Widowmine count that he's had in the past, not there this game.
Yeah, this is a really tough spot to be in. You're losing so many SCVs. That command center's getting very low!
Oh, jeez. Does he notice? Yeah, he's preparing. Okay.
Oh, boy.
Just collateral damage.
My heart starts to get to be there. I was like, wait, it's like, I didn't mean to blow up your command center.
Like, you actually almost killed my command center.
If one more Baneling had detonated prior to him just, like, pressing that liftoff button, could have died.
Oh,
it's
thank
a
you, Flo.
Yeah, Flo just pointing out. It's like, hey, HeRoMaRiNE's decided that, 3-3 is just not worth going for. There we go.
He's on
but
top.
Still, he's going to be behind. And that's just so... It's not that it's, like, bad, but it's so uncommon for Terran versus Zerg. The Terran is almost always ahead in upgrades against Zerg, especially when it comes to the +3 attacks.
He's maxed out, HeRoMaRiNE, by the way. So these counterattacks have won some space. HeRoMaRiNE's got to micro his heart out, though, because maxed out Terran's not actually the best thing in the whole world. But if he can deal it out right here, he's got to. Surges forward, gets the Banelings, but there's a whole other wave behind that.
It's actually quite nice because, yeah, Sen is setting up this big flank. He wants to clear up both halves of the army at a time, but the splitting has not been perfect from HeRoMaRiNE. He lifts up a good chunk of Marines, but the rest all die on the ground, and now as he tries to run home with his tail between his legs, most of his supply is in medevacs.
Yeah, he's not as maxed anymore, and it looks like Sen sees the light at the end of the tunnel. He's going to push forward. Oh, the Widowmines betray once more. And HeRoMaRiNE, we're going to go to game number 3, buddy, because your army, it just simply doesn't exist. That medevac supply you're talking about, well, Sen's working on it. He's trying to help him out there.
Yeah, and he's doing his absolute best to help his friend bring that supply.
Gosh, you have too many medevacs. Let me help you with that.
Yeah, it's like, you actually have 5 Marines and like 10 medevacs. Not very useful. This third base, as much as it was nice to save earlier, it will not survive now. And GG is called. Sen brings the series to a standstill. Not knocked out of WCS by German players just yet.
Fighting for it. He's made it go to game 3 both times. Playing better that game for sure. I mean, he was almost never really in danger, to be honest. That 4th base was as safe as it could be. It was actually, I think, never attacked. Great creep spread, just good tactics overall. And HeRoMaRiNE, by the way, I did not feel like he played terribly that game, so there's got to be a little bit of like a, oh gosh, I poked the bear.
There's a few things where that got really out of hand, and in the
what would you judge
earliest moments, like careless things, like the Hellions didn't really do too much. He pulled the Banshee back a little bit earlier. Could have got another drone here, drone there. These Hellions just getting caught like this. Like this isn't. You can't say that the game was lost because of this, but it's mistakes like this that add up. Starting the armory later with this, once you put it all together, if you make a list of the tiny things for HeRoMaRiNE that went wrong in this game, at some point you're looking at it like, okay, yeah, he did screw up quite a few things, and then
this is a great fight.
Yeah, taking these pushes out. And
it's
just been so tough because he was still able to macro. His macro is really like his defining thing that I'm seeing in these games because his army is never small when he has money. And it's not until he runs out of fuel and the game is basically over that he has no forces left. So still really impressive. But in here, like the pre-split, not really ideal. A lot of these Marines are clumped up, and this is what makes this sandwich play so strong too. Not having any mines covering his rear.
Yeah. And then that's when the mega damage was done, and Sen knew. Rally the forces off the 4 hatches, and we will end this one, boys, and drive it to game 3. A lot of 3 games. Actually, it was just the J-Dog series it wasn't, but, well, we've only done 3 so far. Yeah. Not going to get too far ahead of myself, but it's better today. More competitive. Hydra yesterday wrecking the group as hard as he did. He's like allowed for me to enjoy closer series today.
Now that you've seen what it's like to, have Hydra absolutely terrorize the group, it's like, well, these guys are actually competitive.
That was brutal. And again, big congratulations to Hydra. He's in form, and what I like about this too is we have a lot of these guys that have moved to the place they're playing WCS. They've committed, and to see them succeed, that's that like feel-good story of like, you tuck your child in at night, you're like, if you work hard and you do everything you can, dreams really do come true. And for Hydra, That's actually right. But all the kids that he smashed on his way, it's not true for them.
Not true for them, but Hydra did not let his dreams be dreams. And if these guys
just
want to
did
keep
it.
their dreams alive, they have to advance here. It's the final map of our elimination series here at the World Championship Series. We have HeRoMaRinE in the left side of Bridgehead. That map, this fateful location where Pult dropped his only map yesterday against Betrayus. And in the right side, we have Sen, who will more likely than not, based on, recent performances, have to go through another German player if he's able to survive Bridgehead.
Yeah, we'll see. That Showtime Jaedong, I mean, Jaedong looked really good, but so did Showtime.
I think
Very patient.
I agree Showtime's in form, but I think that most people would probably still agree that if Showtime actually beat Jaedong, it would be it'd be a bit of an upset. People, you wouldn't be quite expecting that. You maybe not blown away because it's like, okay, Showtime's really good, but it's like he did it's like beat Jaedong in a broadcasted match live. Not something that's not like an
the song
everyday
you're singing.
thing.
I'm jiving with it, Nathanius. I'm jiving with it.
Thank
Swinging
you,
the
Jeff.
hips, humming a tune. Okay. So Bridgehead, talk to me about ZVT here. I know PvZ gets wild, but what are some of the features for ZVT here, or TvZ from your perspective?
Naturally, you're playing with a lot of ranged units with Terran. And
Off to
third
a good
base, for example, and when I say third base, because it's Sen, obviously he's not going to play normally, so his natural expansion in this case.
Sure.
You can hit it a little bit from the high ground. That's not a bad siege area later on because that fourth base is, the fourth up there is often times a big target. He showed against Showtime you want to take the center position. I think that's a bit crazy versus Terran since those tight choke points at the ramps. If you try to take this base, this choke point ramp, like you put your mines at the bottom and then things just get funky really, really quickly.
Yeah.
But the back rocks are always going to be a point of contention because some players will do crazy things like we saw yesterday. Big throngs of roaches pushing through, and you have those vulnerable back rocks. It's hard to cover all places at once when you're not 100% aware of what your opponent is up to.
I find that this map does a fairly good job of making those back rocks perilous for pretty much all three of the races, and in this matchup in particular, it's like, Roach Ling at the back door. Like, very few Terrans fully depot wall that off or even build, engineering bays. Of course not. Nothing there. So it usually is something you can kind of rely on, but Zerg too. Like, if you land a couple of medevacs outside of that or just later in the game work your way through that, it's something that you can utilize as a harass point for the rest of the game. I like that about this map.
Yeah, it's very nice. It's very nice. It opens up so many opportunities to capitalize on leads, especially since defender's advantage is such a big thing in RTS. But now you have so much more area to cover. Complicates things, to say the least. HeRoMaRiNE's gonna still once again go for these quick extra couple Marines on top of this. But you can see already, like this Reaper, any drones on the right side of those minerals, that Reaper can just freely pew at.
And the Queen has to go up there because slow Zerglings off that creep in particular.
She's out of her element. She's not on creep. She's moving slow, not feeling all that great.
Nice little harass point. So that is part of the weakness of taking this as your natural. The advantage, of course, is that taking the back base as your third is much easier to secure. So if he can hold this down and really make sure that Hellions don't run by, and if we get to that stage, that kind of stuff, he's in a good spot in that way. That's why I did it.
I'd still argue that as a Zerg player, taking the third is so normal and usually like a natural type thing against Terran that it shouldn't be your biggest worry.
Okay, fair point.
That the fourth base is still the big point of contention. So not
well,
really
then maybe
a big
early
deal.
creep tumors are more beneficial here to push across that bridge.
I can definitely get behind that. Pushing the creep tumors out from this earlier low ground base will certainly benefit Sen more in the long run. And that's one of those things that can actually hurt Sen when he takes harass from that Reaper because that Queen does get pulled around, not always at the forefront, getting those creep tumors planted, getting those ejects. And you still have to keep in mind that you do want to get a creep tumor between that main and the quote-unquote natural, since the distance between these two is very difficult. If you bring all your Queens down, the Hellions run by into your main, the Queens aren't going to get up there to defend in time. And even this Queen is taking a beating.
It's getting low. There's a little bit of a bait, though. Pushes it to the limit. Now, Nathanius, we have 6 Roaches on the way, and Zerglings are already working on those back rocks. It's just 4 Zerglings, so
you know what?
It's a tough task, but it's not spotted at all.
I'm feeling a bit of Roach, potentially Roach Bane play here. As you get to work on these rocks and those Roaches move across, most Zergs, as these Roaches finish, they start that Baneling Nest, and there it is. So big aggression coming out of Sen, because what he can do with the Overlord by the rocks, that drop is going to try to do some damage. But you break these rocks, if the Terran doesn't realize it, you win the game. Like, you don't have any defenses. If the Terran realizes, and they build a huge defense here, then you just Baneling bust the other side. you've got two options, two different ways that you can try to just pummel a face in. HeRoMaRiNE's drop is going to land at the southeast location. He's going to be like, what? There's nothing to
It
my
has
drop
to
here.
do game-ending damage to Thanos because these rocks are getting very low. It's not spot at all. HeRoMaRiNE's not moving over here. There's nothing. You have to think about it soon.
One Marine in HeRoMaRiNE's ace, and I do not believe it will be a HeRoMaRiNE in control.
Oh my god. That pun is worth an award. The Widow Mines go off, though they've been spotted this time. The rocks are dead, and the SP's
Here
only
we
just
go.
got, like, where is his army? It's exactly what Nathaniel was talking about. And he's got nothing. He's got a
Roaches
single
and
Marine.
Lings spilling into your base. He's morphing Banelings right in front of HeRoMaRiNE's face.
He's so confident. HeRoMaRiNE knows this is death. What does he do? He's got a single Mirage pulling the SCVs. But those are roaches, and Banelings are coming down behind this, buddy.
Here comes the Bane train. SCVs not particularly effective as Sen wants to stay alive here in the World Championship Series, and I'm getting a feeling he will. GG. HeRoMaRiNE taps out the back rocks. The unexpected point of entry.
I mean, so in HeRoMaRiNE's defense, like, you don't expect 4 Zerglings to go nibble at that, but to be honest, his build skipped like the Hellion stage. His Reaper got good intel, but of course that doesn't really carry you. It actually tragically saw it was just on the verge of seeing that Roachborn, in which case it might have tipped him off. I don't know if he could have done anything in that little bit of time, but anything would be better than nothing. He just, everything about his build was kind of like, all right, there's going to be this kind of window of time where I'm really not sure what's happening. And in that time, Sen launched his attack and was able to win and get himself into the next round.
Now, this is one of those scenarios where HeRoMaRiNE should have recognized, or you need to recognize as a Terran player, that low ground base is not the third. And I feel like with the way that medevac went in towards the end, he was like, okay, I'm going to drop this base. Maybe he thought there would be a third base there, but you need to know a little earlier, either with an early Viking or somehow squeeze a Reaper, throw a Hellion away.
A scan.
Even a scan. You know,
As expensive as that is.
You know, as a Terran player, those scans, man, those are diamonds. You don't want to throw those away. But the point is, you need to recognize it because there were way too many drones on the low ground base.
Yeah.
Like, it couldn't have been a third. You couldn't saturate it that quickly without taking all the drones out of your main or your natural.
Just put a depot there. To be honest, everything you said, I agree.
Yeah,
but
and then
you
you
know
see
what?
the rocks being worked on.
Put your
put a
fourth depot there. Where are the other depots?
There's no Terran greed excuse where I
No.
could say not to build a depot.
And I guess, I'll tell you what, HeRoMaRiNE, he'll be an advocate for that depot in the future. He's like, on Bridgehead, put a depot.
yeah,
You will.
build a depot. Very curious very curious to know what Shober and the boys think of building depots by your rocks on Bridgehead.
Well, we'll take it right from there, gentlemen. What do you think about putting depots by the rocks? Sounds like a darn good idea to me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's something we've seen twice, I want to say, in this last 2 days. Like, please, Bridgehead, it's a map with these huge rocks. It's going to be exposed and used in every opportunity. Just take the extra time.
Now, I do want to mention that it was Polt that fell to that too, right, on
Yes,
day one.
yes,
So,
correct.
again, it's not like a... I mean, if Polt can make that mistake too, it's definitely something that you fall trap to, prey to, rather. But at the same time, I think Incontrol put it the right way. Once you have it happen to you once, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And then you just have to remember it from then on. But let's talk about the match as a whole. Of course, that was kind of the falling demise here for HeRoMaRiNE.
Like, I almost feel that a lot of players approach this map as a map they don't play a whole lot and be like, I expect my opponent to veto it, so they're going to veto different maps. And then if they end up playing it, it's like, oh, okay, I'm ending up playing Bridgehead. Well, you know, I guess it will be okay, but like, come on, there are two, not one, but two destructible rocks. I felt like even on smaller maps, you know, like Expedition Lost, people would at least always check their rocks. This map, no high ground, no ramp. 2 sets of rocks and 2 games we see no depot there. Like, I don't really get it.
I mean, but like you said, I think you bring up a good point, is that we've seen kind of the mind games start to happen around the map. Well, everyone's like, well, I really don't want to play Moonlight. I don't want to play Dash Terminal. I guess, like, Bridgehead, we'll leave it for the third game. It won't happen. And then it comes to it, and you're like, right, I'll just play it. No problem. And then you're like, oh, my goodness, I can't forgive myself for that, because it's something that you just fall prey to. And I think you're right. Obviously, from analytical standpoint, we have to look at it and say, everyone, I mean, especially if you're watching right now, or, you know, even in your own ladder games, you want to keep track of that. I mean, that's a big danger, but that also speaks to just how much people are not used to playing certain maps, and they're just not used to wrapping their heads around different formats of playing their maps out.
And I think it comes down to a lot of just the stylistic of player to player. We have players like Paul, like HeRoMaRiNE, that are very standard. They play normal, safe, macro builds on all maps. And then we have players like Sen, who's a veteran, and that other Zerg player that just... they have a lot of strategies, they have a lot of gimmicks, and they're willing to use those and go, like, do these weird strategies, go all in. And we see that in these maps. They abuse the maps better. And I want to say this is a great map pool altogether because all the maps are completely different.
That's what's
and
exciting.
And it's coming into play over and over again.
Yeah, I think that it's really, we've already seen it in the first 3 groups, and we're going to see many more of it as we go onward in the Premier League Season 3. Let's talk about the match as a whole, though. I think something that you were bringing up earlier, kind of a half as a joke, is like, are there too many Widow Mines? I mean, you can't have too many, but we had a couple times again where it did backfire, not to a detrimental effect, but it does seem like HeRoMaRinE relies on them a little too much sometimes to be able to push the Zerg back. What do you think about that?
It's hard to say as a Protoss player. Protoss, you know,
you guys are like,
we hate Widow Mines and we love them. We hate them from our perspective. I'm sure Terran players love them. But all in all, yeah, I don't know if it was like the splits, the micro, but it just seemed like the Widow Mines, they hurt the Terran player a lot more. HeRoMaRinE just kind of struggled, and then on top of that, he just had such a heavy Marine composition constantly in these Banelings in every single match. He's taking so much damage.
I kind of felt on Cactus Valley it played out very well for him, and I mean, like, obviously you don't want to put all your Widow Mines together. I think that's something Jeff mentioned during the broadcast. You want to spread them out, you want to keep nice distance between them, you want to make it extremely difficult for a Zerg to chase. Not just win a fight, chase down the medevacs, but no, win a fight and then be careful. That was the second game in a row, by the way, that there was a Tor trapped, I believe, in the natural. But I think in game number 1, everything came together very well, and we saw them a HeRoMaRinE that I think a lot of Zergs on the European server are familiar with. Just a damn good Terran player, right? Who's just doing the right things, and if he catches a little bit of momentum, things go well for him. I, however, think it went wrong for him this series in game number 2. He had a Cloak Banshee in the main base, and there is a Spore Crawler only 10% on, and he flies away, like perhaps worried about an Overseer. That wasn't there. That Cloak Banshee could have killed 7, 8, 9, 10 drones, and I think then you're looking at a completely different game. Already won game 1, a lot of momentum going into game 2. I really think that he missed an opportunity there.
Yeah, I mean, overall, when we look at it, even Nathaniel and In Control were saying it during the cast, is that there seems to just be like these small, even in game 1, right? Like the scene we just saw, if that medevac didn't dodge in the mine, game would have ended maybe, 30 seconds earlier, a minute earlier. So it seems to be all these small mistakes, and you know what? I think we have to look back and say possibly nerves. I mean, we talked about this going into the game. When you're making just the tiny ones that start to add up, it's not necessarily, I mean, some of it might be bad habit, but some of it is nerves because, again, his first time here, he's really eager to make it in the round of 16. Unfortunately, he gets stopped this time by Sen. So now let's focus on Sen, though. He stays alive. What do you guys think? Did he look a little bit shakier than his first match where we were, despite result, we were pleasantly surprised?
I think he's a veteran, and that's what came down to it in this matchup, and that's what's going to come down to in the last matchup. He's 28 years old. He's been doing this since Brood War. He's been playing for probably over 10 years. I think no matter what, he's going to play his best. You know, he's not going to really waver too much. Whatever game he does have, that's going to be his best case scenario. Just going to be what that is. And whether, Jaedong or Showtime are going to be a little shaken up, because right now they have all the momentum. They won. They're going to the winners match. All of a sudden you lose, and Sen's on an up note. He's coming off a win.
Yeah, all right. Well, we'll have to find out who's going to come down back to meet Sen in the final match, because next up it's going to be the winners match to determine the first seed of Group C. It's going to be Showtime versus Jaedong right after this.